is no slouch when it comes to the recruiting and job searching industry. She is currently the Director of Career Services at New Horizons, which is a technical training school. And so she is the Director of their Career Services. She has over 10 years experience in the recruiting and hiring industry, over 8 years as a career strategist, personal development trainer, and coach. She has very sharp business acumen based on a foundation of finance and accounting, strong action-oriented entrepreneurial mindset, international and diverse cultural understanding. She specializes in job search strategy and a lot of other things. She is also the president of a Toastmasters group. So I'm looking forward to a wonderful presentation from her. And so please welcome Karen O'Neill.
The other day I was doing, most of the work that I do is actually online. The company I work for has 20 different locations. So our students jump online and I get on the call and talk with them about career services. When y'all think about career services, what comes to mind for you?
Oh no.
Workforce, okay. What are other, I like to be interactive, so talk to me folks. Career services, what's it mean?
Guidance in what's leading edge.
Okay, what's leading edge? It's, you know what, to me, actually Kathy is kind of the epitome of career services, right? She's helping everybody move through whatever transition they're in to end up in a better step on their career path. And so I always, in my role in career services, we have about 1,500 people or so every year who come through, and so I'm talking to these people every week when they come into our programs. I start off by asking them, what is career services to you? And I always love their answers because that tells me a lot about where they're coming from. And some of the answers they'll give me, they'll talk about things like, you know, it's doing my resume for me. It's helping me be ready for interviewing. It's job placement, actually hooking me up with an employer. There's all kinds of different answers that they give. And you know, and so what I talk with them about is, first of all, you get out of it what you put into it. I love that. You know, you've seen, in fact, I traced the quote back to who first said it, and I've forgotten that now, but many people have said that quote in one way or another. But it's really true. In your whole career, in general, you get out of it what you put into it. And so this time of transition is the same way. There's so much that you can get out of this time. Yesterday in my Toastmasters group, I gave a presentation about transitions, and I thought that would work out very nicely here. Every time that I give the presentation for our career services group at work, I talk with them about transition and about how there are different skills that are very helpful during a transition process. So what is transition in the first place? You know, in 2008, 2009, we had a lot of change going on here in Austin and everywhere around the country, right? And there was a lot of change that happened for me personally around that time, and so I did a bunch of research around transition. What is transition? Because when I kind of hit a block in my life, then I start doing some research, and then I move into a lot of reflection, and then I start to respond more. So on the research, what I found out is that transition is actually, it's a three-stage process. Anybody ever thought about this? It's really interesting because usually in our society we tend to use those words, change and transition, interchangeably, like they're the very same thing. And they're really not the same thing. I'll give you some examples. Last summer, a lot of change in my life. New job, new house, my kids moved out, all kinds of change. But these are things that happened outside of me. So when I went from one job to another, you know, I had one job and then I moved over and I did another job. The same kind of thing with the house. I had one house, one place I was living in, and then I moved to another place that I was living in. Well, transition's not like that. Those things are situational things. So change is situational. It's something that happens more outside of yourself, right? Transition, it's an internal process. And it starts with an ending. It actually starts with an ending. And this is really important to think about because as I work with people who are looking for their new employment opportunity, one of the things that happens is they'll get caught in the ending. They're caught in their last job. And the place that I see this happen the most is actually with interviews. I'll be talking with a hiring manager who conducted an interview and they said, you know what, I'm not even going to move forward with this person. And I'll say, why? What happened? And they'll say, well, I was asking them about their last employer, their last job. And they were telling me that, you know, they basically badmouthed their last employer. They said all kinds of things that, and, you know, they may have said it with the best intention, like, you know, be careful not to do these things or whatever. But it doesn't matter. Anytime you're hooked in your last job and you're still there talking about your previous employer, that demonstrates to the hiring manager that you're talking to that you're not ready to move on. You're not ready to come and help them with the job that they have to do. And if you are, then maybe you're going to do the same thing to them that you did to the previous employer, right? So they're avoiding having that kind of thing happen. So paying attention to those endings is huge. It's really, really important. And so to be able to look at those at your endings and have some resolution with previous employment that you've had, that kind of stuff, it's very important. And another thing to do is just to look at your endings in general. Like you can look back to when you were in high school. You know, how did you go from high school to college? How did that transition happen? How did you go from one home to another? Are you somebody who hangs on to things or are you somebody who can let go? Because I'll tell you what, if you're going to move on in your career path, you have to let go of some stuff, right? You can't move on without letting go of something. So there's a lot of letting go that has to happen. And that's some of the big lessons out of that ending stage. The other thing that happens too is another one that's important to let go of is resistance. So sometimes maybe you're resisting the situation you're in. Maybe your ending wasn't so smooth and you're more aggravated about that than you are with your attention on moving forward. So really noticing those endings is a huge thing. The second part of transition is what they call a neutral zone. It's like, okay, neutral zone. You know, that transition stage, it can be as short or as long as you make it be. And of course, there's lots of other things that are involved, but it's an opportunity for you. For me, I found that the neutral zones that I've been in, those are huge opportunities for me to learn and grow as a person, for me to know more about myself and who I am and what I have to offer a future employer. So there's a lot of growth that happens. There's also, there's things that you can practice in that time. So, and I'll give you some examples of that. I went down to, are y'all familiar with the Initech conferences? Y'all know those? Yeah. So I went to 2 Initechs last month, one in San Antonio and one up in Dallas. And both times there were panels of employers there. You know, the work that I do is primarily in IT. And so these were IT hiring managers and employers. And they were talking about what they look for in candidates. And of course, anytime that they're talking about those things, my ears perk up and I pay pretty close attention. You know what they all said? It's soft skills. Soft skills make all the difference. And very interesting to hear that. What happens, and when you think about this, it makes sense. They're not going to interview anybody who doesn't have the base level experience that they need, right? So if they're looking for people who can do certain things, they're going to make sure that they can do those things before they even talk to them. And then when you have a handful of candidates and you're just down to 3 or 4 people maybe, what makes the difference? It's who you want to bring on your team. It's really who you want to bring on your team. And so when you think about that, then consider for yourself, who do you want on your team? You know, what are the skills and what are the soft skills? What are the things that you like about people that you work with? You know, do you like, just think about that. you know? And so then think about those qualities that you have in yourself. And there may be some different skills that you can practice with that to be able to increase your own set of soft skills and how you'll come across to any employer. Things like, you know, how you pay attention, if you're a good listener or not. Things like how you communicate. In fact, the last position I was hiring for, I interviewed somebody, really enjoyed her, great personality. She seemed like she'd be a good person to add on my team. I really enjoyed the interaction that I had with her. And then I thought, you know what, I forgot to ask her about her written communication skills. And that's really, really important in the role I was hiring for. So I emailed her and I asked her about, you know, tell me about your written communication skills. And she emailed me back, whew, oh y'all, it was not good. You're laughing. And it was so interesting because this is such a real life thing where what she said is, I'm fabulous at it. What I saw, no uppercase, no periods, no sentences, run-ons. It doesn't work, you know. Here I am, and my department needs to be an example of good professionalism. And it was like, you know what? She's out right there. And so that's, you know, those are some of the examples of things to think about. Some other stuff on the neutral zone. You know what? This is a time of uncertainty, right? And so how do you deal with uncertainty? Dealing with ambiguity or uncertainty or any of that kind of stuff, that happens all the time in the workplace. I can't micromanage my team. I don't have time for that. I need to know that they're going to take the initiative, that they're going to handle things, that they're going to have some level of discernment and ability to work with any uncertainty or any ambiguity that's going on. And so notice for yourself, you know, ask yourself some of these questions. Get to know yourself and use this time as a time to really improve who you are, and it'll help you feel better about who you are, and it'll help you present yourself better to employers. Let's see, some other things. Oh, understand about hiring. You know, and this is one of the reasons to come to Launchpad. And next week, I'll tell you what, my husband, you'll be learning a whole lot about hiring next week. His presentation lately is called Hiring is a Team Sport. I'm sure he's going to address how you guys, the role that you play in that game of hiring, and you're going to get a lot out of it. You know, I was joking with Kathy about how I have 10,000 plus hours in hiring and all that kind of stuff. And part of the reason I do is because he and I talk about it all the time. And so y'all are in for a good treat next week with him. That'll be a place that you can really increase your understanding of how hiring works. And the reason why that's so important, let me back up and tell you that. That's so important because that's going to help you interview better. It's going to help you get to the interview in the first place, but it's also going to help you interview better. Part of the reason why is that you'll understand more how the person you're talking to is thinking. And that's so important. In the hiring process in general, I mean, we always get, like, people will, I'm sure, who's had this experience? You send out resumes and you don't hear anything back. Yep? Everybody?
Anybody not?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So think about why. Think about what happens for them and why that is. You know, when I didn't even post the last job that I hired for because I didn't want to get the flood of people coming in. And my life is so busy anyway that adding some, you know, what happens with hiring is very often it's something else that's added. You know, so you're doing your regular job, which is probably way beyond 40 hours a week, and then in addition you need to do some hiring, and it's like, where do you fit that time in, right? So put yourself in the in the mind of, in the place, the role of the other person that you're interacting with. And that's going to serve you really well in your hiring process. The other reason why is because it's going to help you talk to, you can understand where they're coming from, you'll be able to help them understand how you can help them and fit into their organization. Gary will talk to you more about that. Let's see, what are some other things? Oh, in the neutral zone, another thing to do, motivate yourself. Keep yourself up because it's important. And there are so many, like these days, the internet, oh my goodness. All you have to do is go to TED.com. Do y'all know TED? Okay, good. Do y'all know this one? The power pose? Yeah, yay! Okay, I'm glad. That's a great one, and there's so many of them. So get on there and enjoy those and keep yourself motivated. Another thing to do is imagine your new beginning, because the third stage of transition is a new beginning. Ending, neutral zone, and then a new beginning. The new beginning, imagine that, and imagine not just how it's going to be, but what you'll be doing, how you're going to feel. Like, have it be real to you. Imagine it in such a way that you can communicate to the employer more, and they'll feel your passion about what you're looking forward to doing. Passion makes such a big difference. You know, I worked with a guy who, sometimes we'll have folks who are entry-level IT, and they're applying for jobs, right? And so I'm going to share another sort of success story with y'all because I love this one. This guy, he stayed really connected with all of his buddies from the military, ex-military. And so he knew one of his friends was at a company that he really wanted to work for. Stayed very closely connected with this guy, went through his training, and as he did, he used his attention to be very interested in what he was learning. And as he did, he got more and more passionate about the subject matter. And so what happened for him, his friend got him in the door. The company interviewed him. Instead of putting him in an entry-level role, they were so excited about how passionate he was about what he wanted to do in his work. He had some leadership experience from the military. They moved him into not an entry-level role, but a higher-level role. And it was the passion that did it. It was the passion. So find the stuff that, think back, that's where you use your beginnings, right, or your endings, right? Think back on the things that you really love doing and have those stories about the things that you love doing. Have those really close because you want to use those in your interview process. And that's going to be a big part of how you present yourself, right? All right. So, transition. So that was what I had on transition. The next thing I want to talk about just a little bit, I've talked about this kind of learning more about yourself. I want to talk a little bit too about how you evaluate yourself. I'm kind of strange because I did 7.5 years of personal development training. And what happened for me is I actually, who likes evaluations? Anybody? I'm not going to see a hand go up, right? Okay. What about, anybody like going in for their annual reviews or any of that kind of stuff? Yeah, no, right? Well, me, I actually love that stuff. I love the self-evaluation. And the reason I do is because in the work that I spent, the time that I spent in personal development, what I learned is how to break it down. How to break it down into component pieces, and then you're able to be being non-judgmental, that's also a skill. And it's a really helpful skill to have. And it's very easy to respond to different things that are going on around you. If you can look at yourself in a neutral way and be able to identify different skills that you have and see where you are and see where you want to be, then you can move yourself forward. And that's what I always did with self-evaluation. So it ends up being a lot of fun. Instead of being about I'm bad or I'm good or bad at something, then it's like this is where I am. you know, this is where I am, and it's okay. This is where I am, and it's all good. And this is where I'm going to go. This is the next step I can take. So you break it down. One of the places that I practice that a lot is at Toastmasters. And so in your neutral zone, another thing that's very helpful to do is to find support groups like this one and Toastmasters. Toastmasters makes a huge difference because you can look at these little pieces, like how do I feel getting up in front of a group? I mean, very often we'll have people who come in and their knees are knocking the very first time they get up and talk. And then as you start talking every week, like now, I stand up every week, I'm the president, so I start off the meeting. I'm the person who's at the front starting up the meeting. And I'll tell you what, that makes a huge difference because that practice, now I can get up here and my knees weren't knocking. When I was talking to y'all, it's like, it's more comfortable. So you can do these different things that are going to help you move your specific skills and abilities and all of that stuff forward. And Toastmasters, I'll tell you what, it covers a whole bunch of them. Another thing that you can get out of Toastmasters is answering things impromptu. Right? Are y'all familiar with Toastmasters? I know you guys have the club here, but
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. I'm going to just back up and tell you all about Toastmasters then, because it's important to know this. It's a great resource for you. Toastmasters, it's an international organization, and it costs like, well, in Launchpad.
We subsidize it a little bit.
Okay, so it's very inexpensive. We have, the club that I'm with has weekly meetings. There's 3 prepared speeches every week, and then there's three evaluators. So the evaluators are evaluating the prepared speeches. And in between, there's a segment of time that's called topics. And that is an impromptu speaking situation. So there's a timer in the back, and they, red, like it'll start off green, yellow, and then red. And so they help you time your speeches. The prepared speeches are, initially there's a book of 10 different speeches. The first one is just an icebreaker. Let us know about you. It's a 4 to 6 minute speech, pretty short. So you can get up there and go for it. Just let people know who you are. The second speech is called Organize Your Speech. And I actually I started on the Competent Communicator again yesterday, and so I talked about transition in an Organize Your Speech for that module. There's 10 of them, and so they go over things like vocal variety and body language and visual aids. There's 10 of them, and when you go through the whole series of 10, then you become a competent communicator. And so sometimes you might see CC behind somebody's name, or in their on their LinkedIn or somewhere, and that's what CC means. It's competent communicator. At the same time, there's a competent leadership manual, and so you're able to not only address speaking skills, but also leadership skills. And for me, in that 2008-2009 time frame, I looked at my personal and professional goals, and they were things like I wanted to be prepared for, when people would ask me a question, I wanted to be able to give an answer without freezing. I wanted to be able to be more confident, really. I wanted to be able to, let's see, what were all of them? Actually, I have them here. And I'll tell you what, every single one of the personal and professional goals that I had, Toastmasters could help me with. Every single one of them. So I got myself into Toastmasters by, my husband suggested it, and I followed his suggestion there. And I've been doing it now for 2.5, 3 years, and I continue to grow. And the cool thing about it is everybody else in my club, they're growing too. You can see people growing. It's so much fun. And it is a very, very safe environment for that. That's the purpose of it. The intention of it is for people to have a safe place to be able to move themselves forward. So you can give a speech, fall flat on your face, and it doesn't matter. They're still going to clap for you at the end. If you get up, you have succeeded, and you're going to get claps. And you know what? Because everybody's been there. They know what it's like, and they know that getting up there the first time, that's what it takes a lot of courage. And so they're recognizing you for your courage. And to be able to go through, like, practice different things, you know, and have just the practicing of it be successful is huge. You want to look for these different places where you can have those kind of wins in your life to celebrate, because that's going to move you through the transition in, you know, the neutral zone into a new beginning. Very often you have to do some things like that and have that internal process of transition happen before the world's going to show you the external change. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to say that again, because that one, for me, that's a huge lesson. You have to have the internal transition happen. You have to handle everything inside yourself, handle the things you can inside yourself. And when you do, then the world will show you the change. Yeah, okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is leadership. So who in this room considers themselves to be a leader? Okay. Oh, good. Okay, we got quite a few hands up. I'm glad to see that. And so I actually, I love the topic of leadership. Love it, love it. And anybody think about that game? Who's thought of that game before? Follow the Leader. You remember that one? Who played Follow the Leader when you were a kid? Yeah? Follow the Leader? No? What about Simon Says? You know, Simon Says, cover your eyes. Now cover your mouth. Oh, Simon didn't say, you know, that whole thing, right? And everybody'd laugh and you play with it. It's a game. So leadership stuff, we started doing leadership stuff when we were kids, right? Well, not long ago, there was this Facebook post somebody put up, and it was, there was this little girl, and she was like looking up at this plane, and just, you know, she had the goggles on, and you could tell that that was like her dream of flying an airplane. And it had this quote on it, and it said, "I wish every girl who was told they were bossy was instead told that they have leadership skills." Yeah. It was a Sheryl Sandberg quote from a book that she wrote called Lean In. And that's a great book, particularly for, it's more geared towards women, but not, it applies to everybody, because all of us have this opportunity to lean in, right? Lean into our career. What do we want to get out of our career? We need to lean into it, find out what the obstacles are. You can't figure out what the obstacles are if you're like stepping back and not noticing, right? So the lean in and all of that got me to thinking, when I was a kid, I was actually the oldest of 7. And I was told not to be bossy more times than we have people in this room, for sure, definitely. And I was told, it was really a trick, because, you know, here I was supposed to be in charge of my brothers and sisters, but I wasn't supposed to be bossy, and it's like, okay, how do you do this? So I often felt like I couldn't win for losing. But to me, there's all these opportunities that come with things like that to really learn and grow more. And leadership, it's just something else. So let's see, and I lost my train of thought. So the other thing I did as a kid is I bought into this stuff about that leaders are the President of the United States, they're, you know, what are other leadership roles, like the CEO of a company, you know, all these kinds of things. I bought into all that stuff about leaders being somebody that I wasn't, right? Well, guess what? Those other people aren't here for you. The only person that you're with for your whole life is you. And so if you're gonna make strides in your life, then you need to think about leadership skills and lead yourself. It's all about leading yourself, being able to lead yourself. And you know, I did, just like I researched transition, I also researched leadership. Very interesting to notice, because really what leadership is the ability to influence. The ability to influence. So you know, you're with yourself 24/7. How are you going to influence yourself? You're going to influence yourself one way or another. You may as well be deliberate about how you influence yourself, right? And so think about that too, and how to lead yourself towards where you want to go. Have fun imagining the future, and think about what are the steps that are going to get you there.